Here we are, back on another session of SCWRM Roundtables for another look into the MCU, this time being a look at the Loki series, and how we got there. Essentially similar to our Star Wars commentaries, we'll be doing a quick skim through on the road to it. In this case, though, we'll just stick it with the two MCU shows that came beforehand. If you want my thoughts on Endgame, good movie. Hasn't aged as well, though. Has quite a few flaws. You'll see more when we get to commentating on that.
So what's the setting up? Again, ever since the advent of Disney Plus, it was pretty much clear that it was not a matter of if, but when the MCU would have started dipping its toes into it with exclusive content attached to it, and we're getting it in the form of series, but not the conventional kind. Rather than having a typical structure, like say like a 24 episode series of 20 minutes each, or like say like a 12 episode. Usually we tend to get these micro series that are like 6 episodes each, but they are very compact, with each episode structure between 40 and 60 minutes, usually, with occasional specials that are deep into over 90 minutes, counting almost as movies themselves.
Ironically enough, WandaVision was the odd man out because that one had 9 episodes instead of 6.
Yeah, because WandaVision was in mind for television.
So, okay. So I'll start by asking.
Guys, isn't it great that we had a year off from MCU stuff, so everything just feels more refreshing?
Depends on how you like the shows, I'll admit.
Well,
I can see just the concept.
Yeah, I can see where Deji was coming from. Keep in mind, we're also getting the series out of the intended order where we're supposed to be released. Because first, the first that was supposed to be released was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Then, I think it was either Loki or Hawkeye. And then, like, after that, WandaVision. But instead, what we got instead was first WandaVision, then Falcon and Winter Soldiers, and more recently, since it's over now, the Loki series.
Okay. Similar to how I'm glad Black Widow wasn't the start of Phase 4, because we've already gone over it, that movie wasn't the best, and it just gets worse the more I think about it. With the order of the shows, I'm partially glad WandaVision did come first for 2 reasons. One, it was an interesting start to it with the first 2 episodes. On the other hand, I'm glad we got that one out of the way because of its very, very, very weak ending, and I kind of like it when the better is saved for later, because...
Well, keep in mind, it's still important in the grand scheme of things because of some clarification that it does up for some of the previous movies and the potential setting up for the future.
Before we take a miniature look at both that and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'll ask you guys this. What are your thoughts on this whole Disney Plus series thing? Because admittedly, if you don't have Disney Plus, chances are you're going to be screwed.
Well, I got some news for you. More people have Disney Plus than they have Netflix.
Yeah, and even then, Jovah, it's the internet. The advent of the digital streaming service has done nothing but miracles, because nowadays, that means the internet has the options to have, like, hundreds of thousands of different kind of contents now in HD quality, while beforehand we could not be available. Not to say though, then it encourages people for piracy only, because like Deji said, there is a legitimately consumer positive reception to this kind of phenomenon, which can be a double-edged sword, like it has been discussed a couple of times, like if it goes too far and it's for like potential soulless corporations, but that's way too much to talk about this, and we already have plenty of stuff to mention.
More people actually do Netflix.
Personally, Jonathan, to answer your question, absolutely on it, regardless of the actual ending quality of any product whatsoever. Not in a sense to ignore that, but in a sense of that this initiative of having these bite-sized, like this series so far is represented to be bite-sized movies, clearly. And my recurring theory is that these series were supposed to be movies originally, but the advent of Disney Plus prompted Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios to decide to reincorporate them as these micro series while adding a bit of meat onto them so they can have a bit more content and can set up more stuff for the future.
If I may,
like killing two birds in one stone.
If I may, here's what I think would be the ideal future. The TV shows have the advantage of being able to pack a lot more in than the movies would normally. I feel if only we could just get them to being movie tier on like all levels, and by that I mean the effects, action, and everything. Imagine these TV shows, but with the entire budgets of the movies.
Keep in mind, Jovah,
it's basically what Amazon is doing for the Lord of the Rings show.
It seems to be, but keep in mind, Jovah, the reception so far seemed to be consistent in mentioning that for being Disney Plus exclusive and streaming services and micro series, the production value is still relatively high enough compared to something like say the average Netflix live action series.
Oh, that I can agree with. What I mean is like, well, there are some points where you can tell this is definitely a grade below the films. Like, I feel like the ideal future would be getting to have projects with enough time to pack as much in as say the shows do, while having the tier of budget and effects and everything that the movies can have. That's not to say that we should completely X out the movies here and there, but I won't deny, it's pretty much a no-brainer fact that a series always has the potential for a lot more to be packed in than a movie does. That's one of the reasons why there was actually cheers when the Obi-Wan movie was converted into a TV series. But
yeah, because thanks to the Mandalorian,
yeah,
I realized, oh yeah, you know what? These things don't need to be movies. Let's just make them TV shows.
Honestly, the Mandalorian seems to have sparked a civil war within Lucasfilm.
And not just that, but because of the events of 2020, most of these series, like we mentioned, had to be rescheduled, reshot, and probably rewritten at some point in order to change the order. We know for a fact that, if I recall correctly, the actual ending of WandaVision was actually changed partially.
They had a scene that they wanted to do with Ralph, but they couldn't do it because of COVID.
I suppose now is as good a time for us to get started with our mini
let's
look
start
at
by talking
WandaVision.
about the first one that we got, WandaVision. This was done around like the Christmas season, so it was like the perfect, cozy gift to give. And as the premise, it's a mystery series about mixing magic with technology. As we know, because of the events of the Infinity Duology, Scarlet was kind of on her own after she nearly destroyed Thanos single-handedly. That's a thing of beauty. But Vision was in complete disrepair. It was completely destroyed, and without the Mind Stone, it wasn't functional anymore. However, we get to see the fact that Wanda and Vision are just fine, and in a setting that keeps changing through different sitcoms era, where they have their jolly old life, constantly mutating with wacky shenanigans and occasional nightmare fuel. But we don't take that much time. I think it's like mid-season when we get definitely confirmation that the real mystery is that a city in... Oh god, I forgot the state.
It's in New Jersey.
Generic American suburbia. There you go.
It's in New Jersey.
Beautiful.
Okay, New Jersey has been encased with a mystical bubble. Everything that enters doesn't exit, and it seems it's reincorporated as such. So an organization is actually controlling them, and
Westview, New Jersey, to be more specific.
Okay, and as a result, we get to have a bit more, presence of some supporting characters that got forgotten along the way, particularly Agent Who from the Ant-Man movies, and one of the scientists from the 4 movies, which I haven't been seen for a long while, and I'm happy to report she's much better than she was last time we see her.
Okay,
We saw her in
I've never seen any of the 4 movies besides Ragnarok, so I had no idea who that character was.
Okay,
your best
missing
bet
out
is
with the
probably...
first one.
Yeah, probably your best bet is just with the first one.
That said, you do need to see the second one to get the whole stuff with the Reality Stone, so...
Hooray.
I was perfectly fine.
However, again, so the series is about for the viewers to and to an extension the organization around it to figure out what's going on. But as the series dwells on, we get to know a bit more about secrets of each character. Well, at least the major ones, like say the organization that is spying on the bubble, Vision itself, Wanda herself, and we. In a couple of the last episodes, we finally get to have something that we did lack, admittedly, in the movie. We got a bit of snippet of it in both Civil War and Infinity War. The actual romance between Vision and Wanda, how did it started, how did they bloom, how these two actually interact together. And again, the one personal thing that I'm happy for that the series conveys is their relationship. Despite all the trials and tribulation and the ending, it is genuinely believable, in what we do. When, thanks to hilarious shenanigans, we even get to have kids. Particularly based on, they supposedly based on the comics, so they're supposed to be like Wiccan and Speed, I think their names are. Although the series, admittedly, is more structured, also like the 2015 Vision comic book series written by Tom King. And I'm not, again, I mentioned in the past, I'm not exactly a fan of him. But let's get to the meaty part.
Okay.
Through the series, we get the supporting character that constantly drops hints and helps, Wanda about what her life should be about and everything. And a lot of fans did speculated correctly that she was a supporting character that in the comics does help Wanda through her obstacles in her journey. A powerful old witch, in the comics mind you, called Agatha Harkness, a benevolent figure that helps Wanda and then gets killed by her in Avengers Disassembled, because fuck me.
Nobody really likes Avengers
Here,
Disassembled.
however, we get towards the end this kind of out of nowhere revelation that this version of Agatha is not even evil, just a dick.
That's the thing. She pretty much becomes a 2-bit cackling villain in the end.
It's not even that, Jovah. She doesn't want to take over the world. She doesn't want to go on a rampage killing. She just wants to be left alone, and I totally get there. The thing about it is that she expresses it in a dickish way and also wants to absorb Wanda's power about it.
And you know what? And you know what? Considering what Wanda does with her power, I was kind of on Agatha's side.
Yeah, let's talk about the major controversy surrounding this. The morality of Wanda herself. It does start tame, for lack of a better term, because it is still a mystery that you have to figure out. But the more the series goes on, the more it basically tells you that Wanda is literally holding a city hostage through mind control, and we soon learn enough also that the citizens are scared shit and perfectly conscious in the whole thing. To the point where when Vision manages to unlock one of them, they are basically a wreck, So the general, thing that people wanted to figure out was, okay, maybe there's a deeper reason behind it. Maybe Wanda is also mind controlled by someone or something. A lot of people love to throw around the word of Mephisto because he's a major player
in Agatha there, and also
it was involved in a storyline tied to Wanda and She-Ra. I get that. The problem is that it's a complete red herring, and. I'm about to mention.
I feel like people were expecting Mephisto too much. I was expecting Ultron to show up because they kept talking about that movie, and also, that government guy that works for
Hayward
Sword. I was about to say Shield. I was like, no, wait, that's not it. Pokemon Gen 8. So I thought he was actually Ultron in disguise because they pulled that storyline in one of the Avengers cartoons. I believe. Avengers Assemble.
Ultron has the ability potentially to disguise as a human, and I still on the belief that he's not dead after the events of Age of Ultron. That Vision voluntarily spared him, so he's still like hiding. He's hiding it. Trope
let me put it this with WandaVision. While some expectations were maybe a bit too high from the fans themselves, the makers of WandaVision did not do much to really calm down those expectations. If anything, no.
What did you want them to say? Guys, mutants aren't going to be in this or something like that.
Yes. Okay,
Honestly,
okay. I know that it's a bit hyperbole in that, but I do believe yes, we should have said some. We should have put some minor fences, to hammer in something like.
Also, Dej, you cannot tell me that they weren't playing with expectations,
Because when they
considering
introduced Pietro and they got the X-Men, so it's like.
And they got the idea from Iron Man 3 of all things.
Let's talk about this. I think around the end of like episode 3 or 4, we get to this one big reveal that a character that is supposedly Pietro Maximoff, Quicksilver, the brother of Wanda, shows up and is being played by the actor who plays him in the Fox 20th Century X-Men movies.
Which means he looks nothing like the Pietro that Wanda knows, but as far as
even the
knows,
show hints about it and says, "Oh, she recasted Pietro." So that particular hint towards the fact that we were going to have like a new Pietro introduced thanks to this was one of the strongest one. And just to get this out of the way quickly, it's not even a red herring, it's a literal joke. It's revealed at the end that it's like another citizen that is simply mind controlled by being side brainwashed by Agatha.
Not even explaining how he has
Wanda,
the speed powers.
And he's called Ralph Boner.
Okay, look, we're gonna try to keep this mainly a thing for Loki, but let me just sum it up. The fact that they admitted candidly that they were inspired by the Mandarin twist from Iron Man 3, one of the most hated reveals in a superhero film, really speaks a lot to how tone deaf the MCU can still be. Like, look, don't get me wrong, the MCU has earned a lot of praise, but we should not forgive them when they do stupid crap like this.
My question in all of this is
don't worry. Wait, Pedro. Let me tell you. Don't worry. The MCU backtracked hard on a certain backlash with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And
Did they now? Oh, we'll get to that soon enough, I guess.
Okay, I will have to listen to this. I'll just remind you then. But the point is, my question in all of this is, what exact control does Kevin has at this point, or are these really his decisions? Are you seriously telling me that he genuinely approved this and said, yeah, this might look alright, or he has his hands tied by Michael Rodent and his crew in upper stairs?
Like, that's the thing. All evidence seems to suggest that by this point, Kevin has pretty much full control of the MCU, so... I mean, at least with Iron Man 3, we could maybe say it was like Perlmutter, but maybe it really was Kevin all along.
Cute. But the last bit that you need to heard about WandaVision is the fact that what comes out of all of this mess are the following. There is now a new Vision roaming around, based on the White Vision appearance. That's pretty cool.
Which literally has the memories of old
I was
Vision.
about to mention, thanks to shenanigans, got the memories of the fake Vision that Wanda created, integrated into him. So it's basically an excuse to have, a guy in Vision roaming around for the next movies. It's a cute excuse because Sword has managed to replicate the effect of a Mind Stone for this new model.
Apparently, Wanda's field gave people superpower. Well, okay, it gives you powers if you go between the force field enough times.
Which happens to Monica Rambeau, setting up a role for the upcoming Captain Marvel sequel called The Marvels.
I'm so calling that they're going to rogue Carol into a coma so that Monica can become the more liked Captain Marvel.
Considering all Kamala Khan shows up, I'm not entirely sure. We probably just want to do like a Into the Spider-Verse kind of thing.
No. Kamala becomes Miss Marvel. Monica becomes Captain Marvel.
We'll see. But, and the last thing that you need to know is that Agatha gets essentially mind-brained on her own, thanks to Wanda. Though it's implied that it's like a temporary thing and we're gonna need her help in the future.
Kevin did say that she's coming back. It's a safe bet.
Probably Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So that's my bet. And Wanda has a new spiffy costume, more a comic book accurate. That is pretty cool. And she's now retired in a cabin in a lake. Though she still hears the screaming of her children being trapped somewhere. That's how the series concludes.
So
Okay, again, like we mentioned, the morality problem comes full circle in the end, where she does free everyone, but obviously, understandably, everyone wants to kill her. And when things get resolved, she manages to, go away. Truthfully, okay, let's get specifically here. She herself does not say anything to the population. She doesn't.
not even a
she,
sorry.
True, but she doesn't say you don't understand. It's Monica that talks and say they will never understand your struggle. So at the very least, I'm willing to give a bit of benefit of doubt to Wanda and say that Monica just brain farted at that moment. Hopefully,
No, okay, go on.
Hopefully this will be discussed a bit better for future project. But my biggest fear right now is that they're gonna have this basically as a setup for having Wanda becoming a villain or something, and then having her being the villain of Doctor Strange 2, which I so hope it's not the case.
I feel Wanda's arc is not over yet.
No.
Because I don't feel so. Oh, everyone forgives her. She gets away scot-free. I feel like Monica was trying to comfort her, but it's like, yeah,
phrasing.
Like, yeah, the phrasing of it was terrible. But it's like,
here's my major.
You understand why Wanda did this. Initially, it was by complete accident. You know that she was just stressed out with losing everything. And then she didn't get conscious about it until like episode 3. She was like, "Oh crap."
That's the thing, though.
Or episode 2.
That's the problem, though. The show implies that she actually did know this was all going along as early as episode 1. Because remember, Vision was starting to catch on to stuff, but then she conveniently shoos his attention away.
Remember that it's the entire mechanism is their own way to cope with the fact that Vision,
it's all coping mechanism,
and the fact that the government did jack shit to help her, both in the 5 years of a blip and in the aftermath of Endgame.
That being said,
like, you can understand. The biggest complaint I have is that White Vision just flew away. It's like, what?
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. It's blatant sequel hooking, but in all honesty, he should have just. This is one of the caveats with the MCU here. Like, yeah, sometimes I get that they want to keep us waiting for the answer, but there are literally some points where the actual resolution is way simple in the actual sequel where stuff happens. Like, hey, you know how Cap and Falcon were gonna go looking for Bucky? Well, it turns out it was as easy as coming to a certain room to find Bucky in Civil War and all that jazz. And it's like, look, sequel hooking is a double-edged sword. If you want a sequel hook, it better be worthy. And even still, you don't need to sequel hook everything here. Like, there's no reason.
Sometimes things just need. It's okay to have things be completed.
Yeah,
I think
or make it open-ended.
As much as I'm not in complete tuning with his particularly on the Disney Plus series, I think one of the more recent tweets from Moeller said it best. We're now basically at the peak of the era of jangling keys in front of your face.
Pretty much. It's because they know it's the perfect way to get people back into the theaters for the next MCU thing. And don't get me wrong, the MCU is fantastic, but I am afraid of them eventually getting complacent and just abusing the popularity of the MCU.
That being said, I'm not on the idea that a lot of people are saying that, oh, this is the sign, a time of reckoning, the MCU is petering out as a result.
No.
I argue the MCU is dying. I'm a DC fanboy. I'm miserable because everyone kept making fun of
release the Suicide Squad cut. Yes.
Okay. Let me just put it like this. I'm gonna wait until we see a whole stream of bad shows because look, I wouldn't call WandaVision bad as a whole. Just like it has
because I enjoyed it.
Let me put it like this. I consider it a show that has a very it has an interesting start. Then it starts to get really good. The problem is just the latter half.
It literally trips on the finish line. That's literally it.
Okay. Let me put it like this. It feels like a bad latter half because the ending lets stuff down. Like, if it had a better payoff, all the build-up that the later half of a show would have been phenomenal. But instead it ends on the worst answers possible. Like, yeah, turns out Wanda did do this all knowingly, making people slaves. Yes, Agatha is just a 2-bit crook card-carrying villain. Yes, Quicksilver is not really Quicksilver. We literally made him a character that only audiences would recognize to literally troll them with a big hope that they've been having. And all of a sudden, still crapping on Quicksilver as a character in the MCU.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even know how they can get out of this particular situation. Spoilers from my head, but yeah, at the end of the Loki series, the multiverse is now a thing. So if they want, they really still can bring the actual Pietro from the X-Men movies.
Okay, so I feel as if this is the one thing that we can agree on. Out of all the free Marvel shows that come out, we can agree that these are better than the Netflix Marvel shows.
Depends on which Netflix Marvel shows.
No. Okay, it depends because the themes and the genres they do have are like completely different. By their own nature, the Netflix series are much more grounded. They talk about the crime in the streets because that's the theme of the Defenders. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist. Despite everything, and Daredevil and the Punisher, for lack of a better term, while these instead still treats themes like the mystical, the surreal, the unexplained. Sure, Falcon Winter Soldier is still grounded, but it does provide also a bit of science fiction. The Netflix series were on a complete different level. You can compare this more to, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to an extent.
I dropped off after the first season. It was so boring. I heard it gets better, but oh my god, no.
Honestly, I really like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Does it have its flaws? Yes, but
it's kind of like Star Wars Rebels. You have to get through a very rocky start.
Yeah, okay. I'll say this. Comparing WandaVision to the Netflix series, I prefer Daredevil and Luke Cage over WandaVision because, look, it's just the ending bits of WandaVision and that latter half unfortunately dragged the show down for me so much. Unfortunately, I feel like WandaVision is a show that's good until it's not, which is way worse than what I consider Luke Cage and Daredevil. Well, the good seasons of those shows anyway. But anyway, that said, it's definitely better than Jessica Jones and Iron Fist. Like, no surprise there. But here's my biggest problem with WandaVision. The fact that the only people who really call Wanda out for her crap are, one-off characters who we'll probably never see again, and two, people who are painted as the bad guys. Seriously, Hayward raised a lot of good points in the earlier parts of the series. Like, yes, you took a whole town hostage. So, it's like the writers realized, oh crap, Hayward actually has good reasons for what he's doing. Let's make him a bad guy who's willing to shoot kids! So, yeah, that happened out of nowhere. And then Agatha okay, as people have mentioned, what Wanda does is incredibly torturous to the subjects. But I'm sure it's fine that she does it to Agatha. Like, okay, at worst, Agatha just wanted Wanda's powers. Like Teo mentioned, it wasn't like she wanted to take over the world or, subjugate other people to her will. She wanted Wanda's powers.
Even her backstory seems...
I don't get it. It's like they had no idea what to do with Agatha.
No.
They just needed a villain at the last minute because we know that the military can easily get jobs.
It's not even that. Again, her backstory is also confusing a bit in terms of morality because at first they tried to paint her more sympathetic because she was part of this cult of witches who was hunted down. But then it seems like she's actually enjoying sucking everything out of the people. So which is it?
I feel like we needed to see another episode of Agatha supposedly becoming more of a villain. And even still, why did we need to make Agatha of all characters a two-bit villain?
Because apparently she is in the Ultimate Universe or something. Thanks. Let's take inspiration from the branch that has Doctor Strange heads popping off by strangulation with his own cape. That's
and again,
tasty.
That supposedly makes it a-okay that Wanda's going to put her in a torturous existence now. Like, ugh. And again, the villains are the only main characters who call Wanda out for all this. And Darcy! Darcy, for as funny as she was when she came back, she pretty much amounted to nothing overall. Hell, she doesn't even really show up.
I will take that over everything because again, it still savages her character from whatever the fuck happened in Thor: The Dark World. So at the very least, now the character is in a better position than before. I'm actually glad about that.
Ironically, I'd say
actually, they're considering the possibility of making what's the name? That government agent.
Agent Wu.
Yeah, they're considering making a spin-off TV show about
Okay,
Captain
that I'm not
Suffering.
entirely sure. I know
Okay.
I know very.
It's an X-Files mystery. So,
I know that I know that they're in talks to talk about potentially an exclusive series tied to Sif, and maybe that's an occasion for Darcy to jump in for that. But again, it's a speculation, and we already drank this being section for too long. So
So
overall,
basically, to sum it up, WandaVision, it was fun until it wasn't. So
anyway,
let's go on
anyway,
to my favorite show
Falcon
so
and the Winter
far.
Soldier, the one we should have got, earlier than that.
Yeah, this is hands down my favorite MCU show so far. Like,
yeah,
it
because
has.
guess what? The Captain America aspect of the MCU is always the best.
It feels like a Russo brothers show, honestly, but no. We got some newcomer writers, and again, apparently the same people working on this will also be giving us Captain America 4. And while I do have my flaws, flag smashers, with the show, it is honestly one that does well. Okay, so like WandaVision, this show gives focus to characters who otherwise did not get as much focus as they could have had. In this case, being Sam and Bucky, and also a
Can
certain
this marriage
other,
be saved?
and also a certain other character in Sharon Carter. One of the other issues I have with this show, but
Okay, honest question: did anybody care about Sharon?
nope.
No, not me.
Okay.
Honest to God, as we were watching the series, I was hearing Jovah speculating about her being the Shadow Brokers, and we're like, wait, what? Like, it was completely flying over my
I had a
head.
suspicion
And
because why would she be in this shady place?
Okay, it's not
Yeah,
explained
that's also a
well.
good. That's also a good point. You wanted something mutant related. The island of Madripoor is here. There's also Wolverine's favorite bar. We're not gonna see any characters, but that's cool, I guess.
Okay. We'll get to the Sharon Carter stuff later, but for now, let's cover the overall synopsis of this show here. So this takes place a few months after Endgame. Timeline-wise, this actually does take place after WandaVision, according to the timeline, so that's cool. And essentially, it starts with Sam taking the shield that Steve gave to him and giving it to a museum. Like, okay, one of the complaints some people did have was how sudden the whole Sam becoming Captain America thing was, which, was kind of also a criticism of it in the comics here. So this show is about extending that process and making it feel more natural. And you know what? While I was a bit iffy on it at first, this in the long run probably turned out to be a pretty good decision. We got a great series out of it, and we got much more character focus on it. Basically, Sam has doubts of it, so he puts it in a museum. Bucky obviously is not happy about this. This doesn't help.
And a quick cameo from Don Cheadle.
Yeah, which apparently hilariously enough, a lot of journalists being journalists mentioned how it was like one of the best cameos or anything, and Don Cheadle himself was like, "I don't get it."
Like, dude, he shows he's a part of the MCU. Like, I mean, how is that even really this amazing a cameo?
Yeah, let's talk about this particular not elephant in the room, but this thing that needs to be addressed at first. As one can expect, even more so than the previous three Captain America movies, this series gets very, very in love with political themes. And some of them parallel current political themes. Some speculate that part of the show was also rewritten to incorporate parallels and talking about the events of last year. And I'm not talking about the pandemic, but what happened in America in the summer period, in case you want to know.
You are
Black Lives Matter.
For as much as I am definitely on board with Black Lives Matter, as a black guy myself, yeah,
I'm gonna call you out on that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I do get when some things may have felt a bit too on the nose, but honestly, with people complaining about stuff like the white guy's not recognizing Sam but being willing to bust him, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see that happening in the MCU. Like, a lot of people have a complaint saying, "Oh, we've never seen that in the MCU before." Yeah.
A lot of what makes Captain America great is because part of his stuff feels connected towards the real world.
Exactly. Like,
There's also
and the whole comic shouldn't be political. It's like you do realize what superhero you're talking about, right?
that's also the thing that it's not even just that; it's the fact they just need good writers, and right now
It's just one of those things. Like you kind of have to address these things.
It's not
You
even
can't
that.
just
Again,
sugarcoat it.
with the big thing that makes Cap stand out here in the MCU that had Steve was where also his actions. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Cap in the first place in the comics. Not so much for stuff like, say, the Ultimate Universe, where he's a complete asshole, but for the fact that. Sure, it is cute what they were trying to do and how they incorporate the modern age, but for a lot of times he was basically this patriotic guy who just punched people in the face and was like, sure, it's fine. Let's get to the next Fantastic Four issue. Thank you.
he's gotten better in the comics lately.
Oh no, he has actually gotten better. Don't worry. He also got the Steve face, but that was kind of like a fluke. But the one in the MCU feels like they were trying to do something more about it, to be a figure that could be inspirational for everyone, and just so happened to have an identity that was tied mostly to America, and everything. So. Ideally, this series is about someone having big shoes to fill, about that. So I get also the idea behind having not just him just getting the role immediately and then having to actually earn about it. It's a bit of abrupt compared to the shift between the ending of Endgame and this, but I do believe it has merits about it. And even the storyline they go through, which has a couple of different story arcs intertwining, works for the most part. Like Jovah said, the weakest part about this is the actual terrorist group, the Teacher of Flag Smashers. Apparently, it's based on like a one-off character that got essentially retooled into a splinter cell of terrorism, and it's led by these adorable, lack of a better term, girl with red hair and freckles, which is also a bit of a bastard, considering she has basically no remorse. She feels very righteous about her cause, and she kills people and destroys buildings left and right as a result.
But her
Now,
mother figure died because people needed their homes
let's talk about
back and
this.
all that.
The moral conundrum when it comes to discussions about this is how do you think some actions of grave matter can be justified, if any, depending on the circumstances of the person that commits them. If the person was such a victim of trauma and tragedy, should they have the right to apply an equal amount of violence onto the perpetrators, only to send a message? Obviously, the answer for someone who believes in stuff like democracy should be no, for lack of a better term, But it's not even just that simple, and that's a question that the show poses time and time again. You can argue that during the final episode, it gets a bit simplified in the solution they can come up with. Mind you, it's not as simple as say, the leader of Flag Smasher, understands what the others are coming from, and she redeems, she becomes a good character and everything. No. They save that for another character. But Sam has a speech which I did found technically fine overall, but that it's been also polarizing on its own over the internet. A lot of people.
You mean racist?
No, a lot of people think it's a bit too sappy, for lack of a better term.
He's referring to the "You've got to do better" Senator speech stage.
Yeah.
I don't see what the problem is.
Me neither. I think it's fine. No, here's my one major problem that I have with the show. They bothered to actually bring back one of my favorite Captain America villain, Georges Batroc, aka Batroc Zilliper, after his basically cameo at the beginning of Winter Soldier. They actually have him start at the start, and then it's incorporated later. And then he gets killed off very unceremoniously by the leader of the Flag Smashers, or either that or Sharon Carter. I forgot, one of the two.
Hey!
And he's never
Zemo that killed him.
And
no.
It was Sharon
that killed
and
him.
he's not even That's not even brought up. For all intents and purposes, he's just dead in the sewers.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of the guy who made the serum. My bad.
Okay, so here's
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Let's talk about that backtrack retcon I was leading to earlier. Zemo. They had to reference because of Civil War how they painted him as this regular civilian who was just in the military and somehow was able to plan everything conveniently. There, because of how everyone's like, that's not Zemo, they had to backtrack that. Oh, he's actually a Baron. Oh, here's the mask. See, it's Baron Zemo. See.
He still doesn't have his sword. 0 out of 10.
That said, though, I did like Zemo's.
You're full of shit, Marvel.
I'll just say this: I did like Zemo's portrayal better in the show than I did in Civil War. Because
you mean because he was actually a character?
Yeah. That too.
It's not even that. Okay, again, like you said, it's probably an S-pool, but at the very least, now the character is more on par. You know, again, it's a matter. These series are also a matter of fixing a couple of the holes that the movies actually did put. So I'm actually glad that Zemo turned out to be mostly okay, and it seems that they still have something planned for him in the future. So we'll see how that turns out. What was actually that thing that you were mentioning before that?
No, that was it about Zemo.
Oh, okay. I genuinely thought that they did mention that Batroc wasn't dead, but no, I guess he still is.
Yeah,
Thanks.
he is dead. Like,
especially because in the comics he did have this moment where he genuinely became more of an anti-hero kind of thing.
Crossbones?
No, Batroc Zilliper. Even became the mentor figure for Gwenpool at some point. The guy still worked for people like Hydra, so it's not like he's the paragon of holy saintness. But at the very least, he had moments where he was still likable. Even in the worst cases, it was someone you were actually having fun seeing getting punched in the face.
This is yet another recurring problem with the MCU. Again, sometimes I like to build us up saying, oh, when will this character return? And you know what? Sometimes that can amount to, oh, this character dies in the first 10 minutes, or, oh, hey, this big Hydra captain that we've been building up for? Let's have him die off screen.
I have no idea who you're talking about. That's probably how insignificant he is.
I'm referring to Strucker and how he got killed off screen in Avengers 2. Like, again, with all the buildup they had coming for him.
Oh, right. Thanks, Josh Wheaton.
Like, again, that's unfortunately a problem with the MCU as a whole, though. Like,
I know.
Like, even Crossbones kind of just got offed very quickly.
What a waste of a character.
At this point, I'm actually wondering what we're gonna do with Cena when she inevitably shows up.
But yeah, you're probably wondering about the whole Sharon Carter thing. Well, okay, see, the Flag Smashers were fueled by literal recreations of the super soldier serum that made Captain America who he is.
Apparently, we were producing mass in the island city-state of Madripoor. Again, like we mentioned, something taken from the X-Men stories, surprisingly enough. And if I recall correctly, there is also a brief mentioning of a character that is attached to Latveria normally, or something. I forgot.
Something. But either way, though, so they meet up with Sharon on this island, essentially, who's there to apparently help them out. And she's apparently pissed at Sam because apparently he and the others left her high and dry in the wake of Civil War. Yeah, remember how people had some complaints about how Sharon just disappeared despite being set up as the love interest for Captain America in the MCU? But then, shenanigans happened. Also, Girl got her role subletted in Captain America 2 by Black Widow, which I mentioned. Yeah, kind of a sucky thing to do. Well, now Sharon's apparently been on the run here.
Steve's niece. Not only by marriage, but still, that's kind of gross. Like Captain America made out with his niece.
Well, to be fair,
it's real Futurama state now.
To be fair, in the MCU, she technically was not his niece.
Yeah, I know. She's Sharon's niece. She's
Peggy's.
Peggy's niece.
That said, though, to be fair, Captain.
She knew if she had known who Peggy's uncle was. This kind of girl. You got problems.
Well, that's the thing. Going off of Endgame, was Cap even originally her uncle in the original timeline?
By rules of time travel from what the MCU establishes, Jovah? Yes.
Oh, it's like I mentioned.
Yeah,
the
he
time,
was actually at Peggy's. He was actually at Peggy's funeral.
the time
They
travel.
backtracked on that, but still.
The time
So
travel in Endgame was confusing, but okay, sure, yeah,
also,
let's go with that.
one last thing to note: the fact that no, sure, let's end with
Yeah, we should
let's
probably
finish with
mention.
Sharon.
So it turns out Sharon is the power broker. You know,
Who cares?
this was some big speculation, but a lot of people pointed out if she's the power broker, she's a terrible boss and a pretty stupid one because she literally crippled her own organization, all on the off chance that, actually, I don't know what she was hoping for. Like, yeah, she got lucky that Sam did, in fact, come through for her, but she essentially crippled her own organization and took out all the super soldiers, including help kill the one guy who was remanufacturing the super soldier serum.
It's also implied at the end that she has some kind of control over the government and what they can do, potentially to an extent also to the remnants of the Avengers, which is tied also to another character that gets introduced in this series and pretty much has a future ahead of himself. U.S. Agent, I forgot what his civilian name is. Basically, a football player who gets arbitrarily chosen to be the next Captain America from the U.S. government, has a lot of responsibility, has a best friend black guy, which gets killed by the Flag Smasher, and this makes U.S. Agent flip the shit off and actually decapitate someone with the Captain America shield. Needless to say, this doesn't go well. Bucky and Sam actually beat him up into submission about that. But he's so obsessed with his job that with his idea of being Captain America at this point that you think he's gonna become a full-time villain. But surprise, surprise, he actually does pull up a redemption towards the end. He's still not technically a bad guy, but he does actually make amends with Bucky and Sam. And at the end, he's actually recruited by the character that we did mention in the Black Widow, discussion, Valentina, the character of Valentina. Again, supposedly this parallel to Nick Fury, who's recruiting up her own version of the Avengers. We'll see how that pans out. Also, something, Baron Zemo dancing for like an hour straight. Next.
Really good show. Does also show how Sam finally gets his very comic accurate costume.
Pretty cool, actually. Bucky's story arc is not to be scuffled, either. He has some stuff to do. They pull a red herring at the beginning with the list. You think that the series is going to be about him tracing back more people with the help of Sam and the others. But surprisingly, no. It's all about instead him having to let go of that, and having to accept his own life, which is includes also about to apologize to a naturalized Japanese immigrant about the death of his son by his own hands, which is actually, again, pretty neat. The fact that Bucky can actually finally move on with his life. Also, there's a minor subplot about how the Wakandan forces wants to take away Zemo, and they apply a lot of international laws.
It's okay. They
soils,
just take him to the raft anyway, which isn't even really their own thing.
And as we know, no one escapes the raft, am I right? But again, that's pretty much it. I also really enjoyed this show. I had my problems with it, but I had also a good time. A bit better than WandaVision, immediately. It's just that the type of setting and things that we say is a bit less interesting for my taste, but it's still nice.
Overall, it did feel like a good show and one that stuck the landing the best
the series
out of the
that
three.
also was delayed, the main topic of today, which was the one that got delayed the most because of the COVID pandemic, where they were filming something in Prague, I think, at some point, and they had to delay that. It's a series about the god of mischief himself, Loki. Well, that in itself is actually a lie, because this Loki is not the one that died by the end of Thanos at the beginning of Infinity War, but the one from the timeline where Steve and I forgot who else was in that one.
Tony.
Essentially, Tony were to get the Cosmic Cube, aka the Tesseract, from the 2020 timeline.
And Tony
However, because
don't forget
Hulk
Hulk
actually,
as well.
don't forget.
No. Oh yeah. Hulk was.
But
He
however,
was,
because
he was
20
talking with Doctor Strange's mentor.
Yeah.
But because 2012's Hawk actually took the stairs this time around, a scuffle happened and Loki actually took the Tesseract and just poofed away. So we're following up on that with the introduction of an element that, okay, I forgot about it because it did have appeared in the stories of the Fantastic Four, and I probably should remember. And it was created by Walter Simonson and Sal Buscema, and while Walter Simonson is my favorite comic book artist, second to Jack the King Kirby, this concept is iffy as we're about to get, because we start with the first episode, which is basically the tagline, with the title of the tagline of the series, a phrase that gets repeated continuously when it comes to Loki: glorious purpose. The Loki ends up in a desert, if I recall correctly, and he immediately gets cornered, beaten up, and arrested by agents who work for the Time Variance Authority, or more colloquially referred to as the TVA.
And yeah, they're pretty much able to absolutely mop the floor.
I was about to mention this introduction of the TVA with this first episode is rough, to say the least.
How the hell did Loki just automatically get taken down by a bunch? Like, worn out or not, the guy has been in some intense fights, and you're telling me that he wasn't able to run loops around them? Spoilers, he kind of was, but that's a bit further into the show.
That's the four-dimensional chess.
They stopped time. That's how he was.
That's okay, but let's talk about the concept in itself work. Again, my experience with it is so limited where it is, I don't remember it much. But here's how the TVA works. Long ago, three lizard people created the so-called sacred timeline because there was a multiverse, but the different timelines were actually fighting each other. As a result, these three lizards created the so-called sacred timeline, and they established the TVA as an organization that has to make sure everything runs in check, which means that this machine has to be greased up decently enough. What does this mean? If at any moment in the timeline, at any moment in time, which we can actually view from from all the screens, we even have a couple of acute presentation that Word of God said that is a parallel to the Mr. DNA segment in Jurassic Park. That's cute, I guess. If at any moment, at any point, the TVA decides that something is deviating from the timeline, their primary objective is to send someone there, stop everything, melt the actual deviation or arrest them, and then proceed to have a kangaroo court about them, and then melt them. Reset the scenario of the timeline until it gets done the way the TVA actually wants. Now, this as a concept in itself is not really that bad. Like, there are countless time travel stories, like say Doctor Who, which have similar concepts. Not too shabby actually about that. But here, the big thing that has split up the fan base about this is the implications.
Here's what bothers me. Endgame already established how time
I was about to get
works.
there as well.
So this show is telling us, no, that's not how it worked.
Okay. I'm willing to believe that, because the way it worked in Endgame was an assumption given by Ant-Man and Hulk and Bruce Banner. So it was more like, it's an approximation. We'll try to see if it works.
But no,
the Avengers in general. But here instead, we actually do get the logistics behind them. They actually try to explain this. And again, in itself, at surface value, it's not even that bad of an idea. It does work. It makes sure the timeline, is in check and everything. But again, the implication. Imagine any moment in the MCU where a critical decision had to be made. A character had to think about what to do. Hell, we don't even have to go that far. Let's go back to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The moment US agent decided to decapitate one of the Flag Smasher. If he decided at that moment to not do that, that meant that the TVA would have stopped everything, melt him up after a kangaroo court, reset everything, and then decided if the outcome was good or not.
No one has free will.
Which is really a very messed up thing in the matter of the MCU.
Yes,
And
it is. That's the point. Even Loki and Sylvie say this is messed up. This is
That's
wrong.
that's the thing that yes, it is messed up for this particular case, but it's effectively the new status quo up until the point of this series. You know, the like it's pretty much clear that the rest of the movies beforehand were not made with this in mind, and as a result, all the moments of pathos, all the sacrifices that had to be made and everything, all of it just feel pointless to say the very least. Like,
not only that, but it also clashes with Endgame as well. So if anyone's a variant, that means that they step it out of their timeline. What about Gamora? Why isn't she being hunted down by the TV?
oh yes,
Because they said
yeah, connected to what Deji was saying. Also, all the time shenanigans that happen in Endgame, in all the different like 5 different timelines, or 3 or 4 different timelines, where the Avengers fucked up for all intents and purposes at this point.
it was meant to
That
happen.
that was fine because apparently it was actually in tune with what the lizard people wanted for Sacred Timeline, which is essentially the show basically as pulling this for basically not having a plot hole.
So let me get this straight. So it was all in the grand scheme for Gamora to get to cheat death because of the Avengers time shenanigans, but it wasn't in the grand scheme for Loki.
Actually,
to
it's not
cheat
even
death.
that, Jovah. Remember, the new Gamora is not the same one who died.
Well, that's my point, though. It's like, well, Teo, neither is this Loki here. Remember, this Loki.
Yeah,
is a
but
Loki
but the new Gamora did not cheat at death, technically.
Well, my point is like, well, they went after Loki for supposedly, cheating death by going off of the timeline, so shouldn't this Gamora also count for that in that regard? Because both are technically variants of people who are supposed to be dead.
However, okay, that's just the premise, and that is the most breaking thing about it. If you're still willing to go through with this, because, for example, one of my friends, like I mentioned, is actually okay with this. He does believe that this concept as a whole is less harming as it may sound. It's not really for me, but I can understand if someone still believes it to be okay with it. What I don't understand is all the people instead who are just taking it again at face value and just saying that it's fine without even analyzing it or thinking about the implications.
Because that line in particular, it's what hurt Jovah's opinion on the show for like a good while.
Oh, and let's not forget about
It
the
hurt
shot.
a lot of people's opinions of the show,
No, but
honestly.
I'll talk about you specifically because we were talking about the show, but while I was still running. And
Which lines are you referring to?
The whole why aren't the Avengers arrested for this? Oh, it was meant to happen. It's like, no. But then you realize, no, they're full of shit.
They really are, and okay.
Let's not forget the shot that also tells us one thing. A lot of time, when the TVA cannot manage to properly do the job they're supposed to do, the timelines that they intervene upon collapse, and as a result, the Infinity Stones attached to that timeline lose their value. So we get this nice shot of them pulling out this drawer, which is chock full of inactive Infinity Stones, and they even have a joke where Loki tries to use one or two of them, and they obviously don't work, and they tell you don't do that.
They're just paperweights.
It's just awful, that kind of shot. Why was it there?
Okay,
again, that's the weakest point of the MCU in general, particularly Ultimate Year in the recent couple of years, having these very awkward moments that can piss all people off just for the sake of a joke.
Not only that, but with the Loki series, the pacing of that show is very weird and off. Like, look, I'm not
okay. Let me put it like this: Loki is a very character-driven show, so it's not you're not watching it for like the action, like how you see.
Obviously,
This is clearly. Sorry, go on.
The characters are talking and get development from talking and interacting, which I do appreciate. It's a nice briefer.
It's actually a love letter. As a one with experience, I can tell you this entire show is a love letter to Doctor Who. Plain and
I was gonna
simple.
say Loki is the best Doctor Who show I've ever seen.
Even with his flaws, yes, I argue it's still.
Because I've never seen Doctor Who.
No, I can tell you this, Dad, from my own. This is a better Doctor Who series than some of the more recent ones. That says a lot, actually. But okay, that's just the premise alone. So if you're still actually on board with this, I can tell you, I have good news. This series actually improves from here on out.
After episode 3.
I was about to mention, not to the point of redeeming itself completely, and it's still gonna have iffy moments for this starting, but let's just say that the worst technically expensive. So instead, let's talk about the positives about this episode. The introduction of the character of Mobius, played by Owen Wilson. I actually don't know what Owen Wilson's career has been in recent years, but I can tell you that
he's Lightning McQueen from Cars.
He's actually trying a lot in this, so that's pretty nice. He does sell the role that he wants to do.
Okay, so this is bizarre. When my brother first saw Loki, he told me, "Man, Owen Wilson looks like John Slattery." I was like, "Huh, he does." So
also,
in the back of my, No, because of the white hair and mustache, she does look a lot like John Slattery. So I was like, huh, cool. So in the back of my mind, when we find out that everybody is a variant, I was thinking, is he a variant of Howard Stark?
It's possible.
Hey, this MCU has done way too many weird things, like Agatha being a villain and whatnot, so it's like, this wouldn't be out of left field.
That is true. But let's pretty much, let's also take also the one other neat moment of this. This Loki obviously is kind of confused by all this information dumped on him, even for a god of mischief, even when he tries to get away from this. It's pretty much clear that it doesn't work because the TVA is located in a nexus where essentially time doesn't flow normally. So as a result, stuff like the power of Loki do not work properly here. So he's basically in chain and everything. And among other things, he gets to view the death of Frigga, which will happen for the Dark World, which at this point, this Loki did not knew about that. So we get to actually see Tom Hiddleston's performance as his character actually breaks down from the news. It is a legitimately good moment, so I will actually give credit to that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jovah? What do you think?
As for this first episode, like I said, very rocky start. And not just from the very controversial retcons or whatnot, it's just that something about the show really does not grip my attention upon first viewing here and there. Maybe it's because the first line about how nothing really matters makes it hard to care, but even still, with all the newer characters, I kind of do find it legit hard to care about them in the grand scheme of this stuff. Like, think about it like this. You know how with the MCU you like to focus mainly about what's going on Earth, but there's technically other stuff going out in space? Now that stuff can be more interesting, but because it's not as well known, you could argue extra work needs to be put in to make you care about it, as was done with Guardians of the Galaxy, which did it phenomenally. Poor villain on the first film aside. This feels like Guardians of the Galaxy if they didn't try as much to get us to care, and I get it. The MCU is a lot more
like Guardians of the Galaxy that didn't try and make us laugh, so...
I think part of the issue is how much I have to buy into how much of a side bit they kind of make Loki in this series. Like, again, this is supposed to be the god of trickery, yet apparently he was not able to escape them at first. Ignoring the fact that the revelation comes about that they do have someone who's been evading them all this time, and it was another Loki. And how did this Loki escape? By stamping on an agent's foot. No, literally.
Hey, man, kids are slippery. Take it as someone that used to work at a school.
Well, to be fair, Jovah, there's also one that managed to get into hiding for fucking decades or centuries.
So she was being smart. Loki, so she had years to plan this out. Loki literally had like 5-10 minutes. It's like, what's going on?
Okay, we'll get to her, but that's the thing, though. She escaped by stamping on an agent's foot and just getting out the door, but we haven't even gotten to who she is, because she doesn't like being called
just the first
Loki.
episode.
But
so
yeah,
we said, did you actually like this, Daj?
I was like, huh, this is weird. Let's see where this goes.
It's that kind. Yeah, it was the kind of start where I wasn't immediately writing it off, but it was not grabbing me. Like, compare this to WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I did feel grabbed as soon as, like, the first, or in the case of WandaVision, the first 2 episodes.
But
Not so
anyway,
much with this one.
The next episode is called instead The Variant, and we do start with an immediate kind of like contradiction, kind of like for the TVA, because our variant Loki is actually instead allowed to go with the TVA on some missions to find the teacher variant, because apparently they need him to track down another Loki variant, apparently. So this results in a couple of shenanigans, which also involves potentially visiting Pompeii during the actual volcano eruption. That is nice,
See,
I guess.
Turns out Loki deduces that this variant of his is hiding in terms of apocalypses or the ends of civilizations. Because...
Oh, I forgot. Is this the episode or another one where they implied that Loki was actually an actual historical figure that like jumped off a plane or something?
Yes, D.B. Cooper.
The first episode, yeah.
Oh, fuck.
D.B. Cooper. You weren't a
And
fan
again,
of that one?
it feels kind of stupid, and it's not like
I mean, it's Loki. He was doing something stupid.
And to be fair, they do provide an explanation. He says that he did lost a bet with Thor, so I guess that's how it works. I'm just wondering, did Heimdall actually allow them to use the Rainbow Bridge just for that?
I guess, yeah.
Apparently.
I guess so.
But let's get back to the second episode.
So essentially, Loki deduces that his other variant is hiding in terms of apocalypses, places that supposedly would not show up on their scanners because anyone doing anything in a doomed civilization would supposedly not affect the timeline. Short of saving that civilization, but whatever. So yeah, he based a whole song and dance in Pompeii just to show off how it won't affect anything. Oh, and meanwhile, him and Mobius are having this ever-so-loving relationship of the two, trying to decide who can trust the other or whatnot.
Yeah, let's also talk about this, why not? Ever since the first episode, people did spotted about something peculiar about Loki's bio from the TVA dossier, about the fact that it's stated, if I recall correctly, that it's either, like, gender fluid or actually stated gay. So a lot of people were speculating if we're going to incorporate this aspect into the series, and I'm like, it's Disney. They want to appeal to the Chinese market. It's gonna be like either like a short scene that's gonna be cut away.
Gravity Falls is anything to go by. Yeah, he called them out hard on Pride Month. Alex,
actually don't know what is done. What is actually done?
You may never
hold on,
get a TV
Dad.
show again.
Hold on,
yeah,
Dad,
actually, I don't
why
know.
don't you explain what he did?
Yeah, what has Alex searched on? I'm actually curious.
Basically, when Disney was saying Pride Matters, he was just basically saying that Disney deliberately cut off some gay scenes for Gravity Falls because they want to appeal to the Chinese and Russian market.
Whoops.
Whoops, indeed. And yeah, I'll talk more about it when we get to our talks about episode 3, but yeah, so that whole thing with Loki here and there, and so yeah, he and
other
Mobius...
than that, this is much more of a feeling stretched out episode that serves just for everything to settle in. So the big reveal that you need to know about this is that this variant that we're searching for is actually a female one from a female Loki, which is a neat concept. Essentially, Loki has gone in the comics through a lot of different transformations. Sometimes, again, he was a woman. Sometimes he was also a kid after some shenanigans that happens. So the idea of having a variant based on his female appearance is not too far-fetched.
My only problem is that she feels more like she was supposed to be Enchantress.
Okay, if I recall correctly, that was mostly speculation from people who were data mined her credit roll, so they believe that the name coincided with a character that was at some point an incarnation of the Enchantress, but that didn't turn out to be the case. This is a genuine alternate Loki. But that's pretty much it for episode 2.
Basically, Loki chases after her for some doors after she sets off some bombs that Crap, I don't think we ever realized what those bombs supposedly did.
No, we know from these first 2 episodes that the TVA agents are apparently allergic to fire because it takes, the Loki's something like as quickly as like burning a field to actually disrupt them. Hurrah!
So apparently the bombs were meant to distract the TVA enough so that she could go and kill the timekeepers. Apparently free.
Remember the lizard people that I mentioned beforehand. But let's get instead to episode 3, Lamentis.
Oh boy, episode 3, aka the episode that a lot of people agree was dull. In some cases, some people consider
was this
it
the one
bad.
when you're on the train?
Yes.
Okay, so someone pointed this out. They said they acknowledge, oh, Loki is bi through that episode.
It's a blink and you'll miss it moment.
No, and then they completely abandoned that one. He has self-incest feelings for her.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
So it's just like Disney, don't do that.
Not just that, again, we're gonna get more into it, but throughout the series, it pretty much gets, developed the fact that this the deviant Loki that we're following is actually falling in love with the female variant Loki, which not only shoots in the foot the whole, LGBT entering that we did for the bio, but it also has unfortunate implication because a lot of people are viewing it as basically self-cest, as in, since, despite being from different dimensions, they might have the same genetics attached to them. Now, I don't want to get into that territory because I'm not on that branch of the internet that loves to do that.
It's okay, Teo, because the show was. It's okay, Teo, because the show itself pokes the bear for us. Hell, Mobius even mentioned that supposedly their love for each other caused enough of a time blip. Yeah,
Mobius tries to call out by saying that it's the ultimate expression of narcissism, and Loki's like, yeah, what about it?
That being said, apparently Loki is bi. Hurrah. Like, again, when I complained about this episode, I got a ton of people on me saying, oh, but you see, it's important that a character who's not just a one-off or a background character is part of the LGBT. And I'm like, okay, he's bi.
That's nice, but the problem wasn't that he's bi. The problem the problem is just that it did nothing to salvage the episode, and I'm like, okay, so what? Congrats, he's bi, but like I said, it was such a blink and you'll miss it moment. Even I didn't really notice it. Like, good for him, but that didn't really do much with the character, otherwise, just talking. And that's the thing with episode 3. There's a lot of talking, and I get it. Character-driven stuff. Here's the problem. Sylvie, aka the Lady Loki character, she does not grip me as a character. At all. I get her plight and stuff, but they don't do as well enough a job trying to make her endearing, which
she's played by Sofia Di Martino, which has an extensive career of her own, mostly TV stuff. I don't really recognize most of the stuff she did, but she's fine to me for the role. It's just that, like Jovah said, the character in herself does not have a lot of time to shine. To me, she feels like the Loki equivalent of Catwoman, essentially. She's kind of a teaser kind of character who is mysterious, has an agenda, tries to play cool with the main character, but maybe not really, wants to backstab someone else,
Let me put it like this with Sylvie here and there. It's like how I said with Black Widow. Unless you care about the character drama, this episode's gonna be a big blunder for you. And that's not even getting into some of the logical inconsistencies here. Like, there's a fight on a train between Loki and, as far as we know, some average human citizens, and they manage to mop the floor with Loki while he still has his strength intact. As a lot of people have pointed out, bolts of the crap on that fight scene. And it's mainly just something that can draw stuff out so that things seem even more doomed in time for episode 4. But nah, episode 3, as far as I'm concerned, is a whole lot of nothing.
It's also the one that leaves with the most, cliffhanger out of it, because he leaves with Sylvie and Loki stranded on Lamentis 1 while it's about to be destroyed by meteors.
You get it, guys? It's a Majora's Mask reference.
But we then transition then to the episode 4, the Nexus event, which is the one that also has the most twist about it. One thing that we didn't mention about episode 3 is that one twist that they really mentioned there is the fact that Sylvie tells Loki that the TVA workers are actually, all of them, variants from people from Earth, hence why Deji's remark about Mobius,
Yeah.
beforehand.
Oh yeah,
So,
I forgot that happened in episode 3. Like, going to like
honestly,
this.
that's so inconsequential even for me as a twist. I'm like, okay, again, what about it?
It does come
Like,
back into play much later in the later
especially
bits, but
because
yeah.
It is actually shady.
And
not
you
just
know,
that,
hypocrites.
not just that. It's established in episode 1, like one of the employees has this weird comedic moment that says, "I don't even know what a fish looks like because I work all my time in my office." And I'm like, you probably watch them from your monitors that monitor them the entire
genuinely
time.
surprised they did not keep shoving that character into that show.
Thank God. Also, a
I
small
think they
mention
didn't
that I
because they
forgot.
realized how much of a plot inconsistency there
Small thing that I
was.
forgot to mention. There's a cute cameo in the first episode of the helmet of a living tribunal in the actual courtroom. That's cute, I guess, but that's it. So anyway, Nexus event. So how did Sylvie and Loki get out of this one?
They were about to kiss, and then
Yeah,
the TVA found them.
because of their kiss and all that. Like, yeah,
No, about to kiss. They were going to have. So is this incest, masturbation, or
Regardless.
Ideally self-cessed, as the internet tells.
Apparently, their love for each other was big enough to show up on the TVA scanners.
Because it's a time paradox.
Which basically was meant to them to attract.
But here's my point, though. Why didn't the TVA just leave them to die in that apocalypse, technically? I mean, wouldn't that have done the job?
Because if they were about to kiss, it would have caused the Nexus event. What they should have done was just knock out one of them, and then, well, as the meteor was about to come out, leave them.
Anyway, this is the turning point because again, Sylvie has the entire goal of Sylvie is to actually overthrow the TVA and overthrow the status quo. Our deviant Loki normally doesn't really want at first to go with her, but starting with this episode is much more convinced, especially because Mobius decides to leave deviant Loki in a cameo from Sif. While Sylvie, to prove her point, tries to unlock the memories of one of the members of the TVA to prove that it's a variant,
Mm-hmm.
Then Ben Mobius actually, if I recall correctly, frees Loki himself, but this basically has him estranged from the TVA, and this actually has both Loki and Silver taken to the lizard people. But if I recall correctly, this is the episode that has the biggest twist so far, which is revealed that the timekeepers, the lizard people, are actually androids. Yep,
it turns out they were fake. And the judge, oh god, what's her name? Ravana Renhold?
I just call her Cloverfield Lady.
Damn. I think it's like Renslayer.
Yeah, Renslayer here and there, yeah.
Cast.
It's weird. Episode 4 seemed to suggest that she
Ravana.
knew Ravana Renslayer.
The point is that, again, the three lizard people are supposedly androids, which makes you question, like, is there more to this? Like, what's the real mystery behind the TVA? However, the judge, tries to make sure that Loki and Sylvie are actually about to die as well, again. But in a mid-credit scene, actually this time around, Loki is revealed to have survived, but by who he gets to see a bunch of more cameos from other variations of Loki himself, including one of my and a lot of other people's favorites, classic Loki, which is played masterfully, very masterfully, by Richard E. Grant. What is that?
Wait. Before you go into anything, have you seen the memes?
You have to be more specific.
Of Loki saying, "Am I dead?" No, not yet. But you will if you don't come with us.
Yeah.
And then, like my favorite one is with Mobius. He says, "Am I dead?" And it's just all of Owen Wilson's roles. So
You
it's
see, Owen, this is what happens when you do not do movies with Ben Stiller.
so it was Lightning McQueen, the guy from
The Haunting, I guess.
no, the guy from Blades of Glory and Night in the Museum.
But yeah, when it comes to that, it turns out that when you get dissolved, you're not actually killed. You're transported apparently towards the end of time.
Mm-hmm. Which apparently has these rejects, which are variants of Loki himself. Again, it's cool cameos. We get stuff like a Loki variant who instead became the God of Thunder, supposedly. It's called Boastful Loki, and later on became the ruler of Asgard himself. We get the Kid Loki, which is another cute concept based on the based on the actual time where Loki became a child again and kinda sort of reformed, kinda, I guess. And a couple of other ones which will also be, developed more in the next episode, which is titled aptly like the original comic before premiered, Journey into Mystery. So,
Yep. So, on to episode 5 then. This is where stuff really is starting to pick up here. So, Sylvie is basically interrogating Renslayer on what the heck is going on here. Renslayer apparently doesn't know. She agrees to help Sylvie try and find out right before turning on her. Okay, I'm just gonna get ahead of myself here. I have no idea what the show was trying to do with Renslayer in the end. It seemed like they suggested like she knew more, but apparently she doesn't know more, and then her exit is weird. But we'll get to that in episode 6. But anyway,
yeah, especially because this has been renewed for a second season.
as we mentioned with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it could just be so much as, oh, there she is. Oh, now she's dead.
Also,
At least with this, it's getting a second season, so I'm not too annoyed with it.
I guess, but it...
Also minor scene that is cute. President Loki shows up yet from another Tom King story, but a variant that is basically Loki as a crocodile or alligator bites his hands off almost immediately. That's
Okay. Am I the one who thought from the trailers that President Loki was gonna be our actual Loki doing something like trying to manipulate the TVA? Like, I so thought, oh, this is gonna be Loki trying to take over the TVA. No, that just turned out to be another variant. I'll admit I was kind of saddened by that. That said, though,
especially because he doesn't show up that much.
Yeah, like, again, I don't get why the trailer focused on President Loki so much if,
Because it's an iconic imagery from the more recent comic timeline to try to go in comic fans.
One scene when he's like having his hands up in the air and all the other Lokis point their weapons at him. That's it.
But yeah, I forgot to mention, for title episode also for classic Loki, the one played by Richard E. Grant, is actually as a take on the actual classic costume of Loki, even though
I hate the fact that it looks like shit.
Yeah, I get it's something that also WandaVision did by having at some point Vision having as a Halloween costume his classic costume. Like, it's a cute way to reference the original costume, but again, that bit of self-deprecation feels just a bit too much.
Look at how silly and stupid these costumes are.
Yeah, it's an issue people have with the MCU. It's like, why aren't you embracing these superhero costumes? It's like
it's like the X-Men, the early X-Men movies all over again.
Yeah.
And those have been.
It feels like Falcon in his Captain America outfit was the only one that was comic book accurate, and they weren't embarrassed about it.
Okay. Argue Bucky as the
raccoon in an Endgame.
I also argue Bucky as the Winter Soldier was also fitting for the most part. He just did not have the mask, but that's it. But that being said, like I said, Richard E. Grant's performance makes classic Loki an absolute blast to actually see as a character. It's all about the classic type of Loki, bombastic, and completely not batshit insane in the things that he says. He keeps repeating the whole glorious purpose line. But this is where things start to converge a bit, because at the end of time resides this creature called Alioth, I think, that is literally threatening to destroy basically everything, also the timeline.
Well,
Essentially,
Alioth is apparently the thing that eats up everything that needs to go when sent here.
it's literally kind of like the Langoliers from Stephen King's story.
Yes.
However, after the infighting, which again involved, alligator Loki biting off the hand of President Loki, if I recall correctly, Mobius manages to bring back both them and Sylvie, while Mobius tries to distract the rest of the TVA on his own.
So I just need to know the old man Loki.
Mhm.
Was that supposed to be the main Loki from Infinity War? That we
No.
saw?
No. This is a variant of that Loki. This
classic Loki is a variant that actually did manage to defeat Thor. Then did not really knew what to do with his life, so went into hiding. And by sheer coincidence, the TVA never found him until he actually accidentally exited his comforting zone.
Okay. Actually,
that's why he looked more older.
Kid Loki was the one that killed Thor.
Yeah.
Classic Loki was the one that also was supposedly killed by Thanos.
Okay, here's the thing.
I was like, oh, is that supposed to be Tom Hiddleston grown up? Is that what we're going with?
No. Okay, here's the thing. Classic Loki was not necessarily the one who defeated Thor. No. Classic Loki was the Loki that, when he was supposed to be killed by Thanos, had projected a fake copy of himself, basically drifted out into space after Thanos destroyed the ship, and then lingered on a planet here and there. So pretty much the TVA left him alone until he decided to leave and try to make amends with his brother.
By little coincidence, the TVA did not manage to find him for hundreds of years, basically.
Supposedly he says that they let him be because what he was doing technically wasn't affecting the time stream until he finally got lonely.
As we also see in this very episode, this version of Loki is arguably the most powerful of the bunch. Because, again, towards the end of the episode, it's all about the entire group of Lokis trying to actually repel Alioth. So, as a result, classic Loki decides to basically sacrifice himself again with the whole glorious purpose tagline. And as a result, this allows to normal deviant Loki and Sylvie to enchant Alioth, and which gives them a way to actually reach essentially the final boss room, basically. Which leads us.
Question: Who did you think was going to be the main villain? Because people were thinking, oh, it's an adult Loki, like a variant Loki. I was expecting it to be Miss Minute, and then the moment I saw her pop, I was like, God damn it, I knew it! And then I was like, oh.
No, okay, honestly, I wasn't expecting that much when it comes to expecting what kind of villain we were supposed to be. We were supposed to get. So who knows? Anyway, we transition into again episode 6 for all time, always cute. So while Renslayer decides to basically fuck off, like we mentioned, it's all about her sequel baiting, essentially. The two variant Lokis reach a person that identifies themselves as He Who Remains. We don't know what the name of this person is, but the clothes seems very conspicuous, to be honest.
Yes.
This person... Okay, how can I say this also politely? This person is... It's weird. We're trying to have this person have a speech about the real significance of the TVA, the creation of a secret timeline or anything. The problem is that it's kind of over-explained, and two, conveyed not with the right tone. It feels a bit too light-hearted, for lack of a better term. This is a very dire moment situation and everything, but the whole thing is treated like it's like another Tuesday or something. It feels odd. At least it felt for me. However, what you need to know about this is that the whole multiversal war did indeed happen. and the creation of a secret timeline did happen, ideally because this person, he who remains, enter in contact with their own versions, alternate versions, starting the war. And as a result, they use Alioth to erase everything that was deviating too much in order to make sure the multiversal war didn't happen again. So, the idea, if I recall correctly, he makes a proposal to the Lokis, particularly the Deviant one. He will forgive them for all of their sins, and this will be like it never happened. Q Sylvie basically backstabbing him, basically.
Yeah.
Which means that the entire, him being the top dog, which means that the entire stability created by the TVA essentially does collapse, which means, again, the timeline can be fractured and diverge again into a coalescence, a cascade of infinite possibilities, which is very timely considering the series we're getting after this one is the What If series. Not only that, like we mentioned, this clearly would be the cause that has repercussion over Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Which explains why we haven't seen a trailer for Spider-Man.
And it's supposed to come out in like less than 6 months. I hope we get to. And keep in mind that we're not getting a San Diego Comic-Con this year, so hopefully we'll get it somewhere. But the point is that so everything seems hunky-dory, right? Sylvie just fucks off, basically, because again,
honestly, the last
after a kiss, yes, we actually do kiss on screen, which made the internet kinda uncomfortable. A lot of people were like,
"Okay, look, let me just say this: self-cess is not real. Relax. I get it. It's
by its own definition, it's something that is fictional. Again, a lighter example of this can be seen in Crash 4. It's about time with the entropies. Well, but I guess according to Dingo Dow, someone really is into that.
Look, I'm just saying the theme is to love yourself.
Not just that.
I appreciate Loki for playing it straight instead of doing what Crash 4 is like, ew, or Johnny Test where it's like, gross, no, let's never think about this again.
Something like that, Jesus Christ.
Yes, he goes into an alternate dimension where everybody shouldn't have been, and by the end of the episode, he falls in love with the female version.
It's like that image with Dr. Robotnik. Finally, my own clone. Finally, none of us will be virgins. But. Okay, like Mobius said, and what I do believe, again, this is an ultimate expression of narcissism. However, a lot of people did mention that it feels a bit, not tasteless, but, a bit of a backstab. Again, the fact that they built up Loki as this, LGBT representation figure, and then the payoff of this is we get a kiss with an alternate version of himself.
I don't think they built it up or anything like that. That was just what we were speculating because like, oh, it's gonna be like the comics. However, I still do feel as if saying, oh, he's bi, and just like, yeah, ignore that.
But basically,
it does feel tasteless.
What I mean with this, what I also mean personally, for my own opinion, is that I don't particularly care myself. I really just don't care. It's not even a thing like I like it. I really just don't care about it. Especially because I do believe Loki is best to be one as a free spirit without having an actual love interest that essentially chaining him down. It does feel more like he's the type of person who will bamboozle everything that's, everyone that's attached to him. Which reminds me of a thing that I didn't mention. In episode 5, it actually gets mentioned. See, remember the whole thing about the TVA suppressing every attempt to diverge and stuff? It turns out, a thing that's basically detailed clearly is that a lot of times, apparently, Loki did not want to be in the role he is. He generally wanted to improve and become a better person instead of being the mischievous god of trickery that fucks up Asgard and is a disappointment to Odin and Thor. But because of the TVA, he was never allowed to change from that particular lore. That's nice to know. That's really nice. Good. Look, to be fair, it's a good setup for the future in a sense of ideally. Well, yes, this Loki event now. This means that Loki can now actually change, and we'll see if that happens or not. but it's still also, again, to reinforce how fucked up the concept with the TVA is. But let's get to the point. Becky, Sylvie, and Loki, keys like two action figures slamming together. Sylvie, if I recall correctly, just fucks off because of whatever happens, they cannot trust each other or something. But the stinger that we get, not stinger, but the sequel hook to the next series that we get is the fact that Loki still ends up to a TVA headquarters, only that now things have changed. No one at the TVA recognizes him, including Mobius. He's still essentially charged from his guilt, from his previous guilt. But one thing particularly has changed: the decorations and the statues and the place, now reflecting the alternate versions of He Who Remains, probably the new big player in the MCU,
Kang the Conqueror.
Which I guess it is a big player. We'll see how that pans out. He's reportedly listed to be the main villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We'll have to see how that pans out. But people do speculate that he's going to be essentially the new type of Thanos villain, the overarching one that will have an impact on the long run. We'll see how that turns out as well, especially because the ending of Spider-Man Far From Home suggested that Nick Fury was monitoring something else with the Skrulls, so we'll have to see if Kang is like a small step. If I have to hazard a guess, I don't know if you follow this as well, but my personal feeling is that Kang is going to be kind of like what Loki was for the first 3 phases for Marvel. Starts as a villain, then something bigger happens, and he has to reluctantly team up with the guys and ends up sacrificing himself.
Well, we know that Kang is going to be an Ant-Man furry.
Mm-hmm. Like I just mentioned, and considering there are a lot of different alternate versions now involved, which will probably resume the multiverse war, I get also the idea there might be a couple benevolent ones at least.
So, Teo, do you
Anyone else
think
kind of wish that they had him dress as give him the blue face,
the blue mask?
Well, okay. Some people do think he might have that. We do know he'll have at least something akin to the outfit if that statue was anything to go by.
Give him the stupid helmet.
Don't be cowards about it. But that being said, do you think they're also going to tie into him being Nathaniel Richards, a.k.a. a descendant of Mr. Fantastic?
I don't know.
Since apparently a Fantastic Four movie is now in the works.
Yeah, allegedly for Phase 5. We'll see how that turns out.
So
I'm more interested in Kang being the villain than what people wanted to Doctor Doom. Because I feel like Doctor Doom is... Yes, he is a threat, but he's normally the enemy of the Fantastic
Not just
Four.
that, danger. He can arise to those levels, but he has to arrive there. The key point of Doom is the fact that he has to boast about it, fail at first, multiple times if he wants, then actually succeeding, impressing the viewers as a result, and then become the menace that has to be taken down. That is basically a Greek tragedy in like 3 acts, essentially, which is the thing that makes Doom my favorite comic book character of all time.
He was just a Reed Richards of all people. That guy should just.
That's the beautiful thing, Dej. Again, Doctor Doom is equally awesome and stupid, and it's just hilarious as a result.
He literally
he hates Reed Richards for no reason at all.
I do. Okay, if there's one thing I do love, it's that recently in the comics he's getting married.
Yeah,
and
Doom is about to get married. We'll see if that actually pans out, or is like the marriage that Batman was supposed to have with Catwoman.
He schedules the marriage literally on the honeymoon day of Mr. Fantastic and Sue.
Because he just can. Shut up.
I also found out something disgusting about Mr. Fantastic and Sue, and I don't know if I should share it.
What is it?
Just one that there are entire decades about their marriage is so dysfunctional.
Reed knew when he was 19, he met Sue when she was like 7 or something like that. So I was like,
okay, no. I actually don't know about that. But that's digressing, because that's now the new status quo. There's a new TVA in town, supposedly, but the multiverse is now a thing. Loki is stranded in his new TVA. We'll probably also see Sylvie in the future, and Kang the Conqueror is now a major play, so we'll have to see how this pans out for both for Loki and for the major MCU at large. So, what do you think?
Okay, the ending, it wasn't necessarily bad, but am I the one that feels like it kind of went out with a whimper? And don't get me wrong, despite that, something major is about to happen. Though, is it
It's like
weird?
it stops more than anything.
It's also weird, but now all of a sudden the TVA were sort of in the right because, well, surprise, surprise, killing the guy in charge does call those the multiverse, which could end up hurting people in the long run. Also, I find it weird that we never did figure out who Mobius was a variant of. Like, it seemed like they were going to. Again,
Season 2.
maybe they're going to touch base on that. We don't exactly know what the themes of Season 2 are. But yeah, speaking of the final episode, Renslayer just gets away with betraying Mobius.
Not just that, arguably Sylvie also gets her character completely, doing a 180 at the end for the sake
Not
of,
really, because she had a goal from the very beginning, and she was determined to do that from the start. So she said she had a goal, and she set out to do it. But now she realizes that she kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But you have to realize from her point of view, all her life, she's been running.
Then you are lost.
So as once they do this, it's all over. And she honest to God thought that it's all a ruse, it's all a lie, because she can't trust anybody.
That's the core Loki experience in a nutshell, I guess. But continue.
It's a tragedy, and I do appreciate it. And also, the finale is different from what I was expecting, because it's just mostly talking. And it's like, we've had big, grand, epic battles. Maybe this is a nice change of pace that I appreciate.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I get wanting to change things up, but that's the thing. Wait, hold on. Hey, here's the thing. It just did not catch my interest, and not because it wasn't bang, bang, shoot, 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 or action, action. It's just that I was kind of checked out mentally by this point in the show. And don't get me wrong, the latter half is much better. But at the same, I'm like, come on, we know how this is gonna go. The multiverse is gonna be created because, let's be honest, if they had just done another chickening out of the multiverse being created, no, even the MCU was not that tone deaf. It felt so telegraphed that this is how it was gonna go. Granted, I wasn't expecting the legit kiss between the Lokis and no idea where that's gonna
just
go.
With actual figures,
I thought they were going to draw that out some, but they're not cowards, and they accepted it. The theme is bravery.
That, yeah, as messed up as that relationship is, but all the same, though, I'm not quite sure where anything is going to go from here. Loki, like Teo mentioned, is in a different TVA. It's I feel like the ending felt more confusing than anything
I actually
else.
do wonder if the series was supposed to be actually longer, but because of a pandemic, they decide to just stop at some point and decide, okay, we'll just repurpose this for season 2 because Disney will grant us that anyway. So,
Overall, I'm not gonna call this show necessarily bad, but there is a ton of stuff I would have improved about it. And again, maybe the Renslayer stuff will mean something, but all the same, I'm just confused as to what they were even doing with her character. Did she realize at the end, oh, she can have a purpose outside of the TVA, even though literally up to the last second, she was bellowing about how, no, we have to follow this purpose, and how Mobius truly betrayed her, but then at the end she's off to find purpose.
She's confused. She's just been a tool all this time. She has no idea where to go.
I feel like that was better conveyed with everyone else. With Renslayer, it feels like she's okay with it. Like she was okay with being used, all that stuff considered. Again, maybe they'll culminate on it with season 2 probably, but I don't know. Her just getting to bop Mobius and then run away scot-free felt a little off, not gonna lie. That being
we have to see where the future.
Again. That's the thing. Going off of the MCU's track record, a lot of those payoffs that we wait for in a while don't always, well, mark the landing well. Hey guys, how about how Fury lost an eye, and that's why he can't trust people?
Okay,
We're not
so
doing that again.
here's my theory on that. That was probably I'm convinced that Fury was a scroll the whole time, and
Like
that's why.
an
So
entire
he was
time.
just lying. Yes.
So you think that the real Nick Fury's
More
been on a
specifically
ship?
around Age of Ultron, because you remember Fury lies a lot.
If it does, if it does turn out that he was a Skrull since Age of Ultron, well, actually, no.
Because
Well, hold
he
on.
tells Tony Stark is like, oh, you've made a lot of things, but war isn't one of them. You do realize who you're talking to, right?
Hold on. If you mean since Age of Ultron, though, that's technically after Captain America 2, though.
Oh yeah, well, I was just saying. I assume that Fury was a Skrull for a while, and also he does lie a lot to everybody.
It's funny you mentioned the whole Skrull Fury, Dedge, because Skrull Furies in the comics are literally what Marvel writers usually use to explain a character acting out of character or plot inconsistencies like She-Hulk and Juggernaut literally having sex. They were apparently Skrulls all along.
That's disgusting. That's stupid. Just accept the L and move on. You don't have to be. You don't need your scapegoat for everything.
It's essentially the Doombot thing, but on steroids.
Pretty much.
You see, the Doombot thing makes sense.
Well, to be fair, Dead, Skrulls were technically invading a lot. Now, granted, Marvel don't still do the Skrull thing. No. They basically used the Skrull thing for during the segment where the secret invasion was being all set up.
That reminds me, are we doing Secret Invasion or Secret Wars next?
Probably Secret Invasion.
But
The
it's
scroll,
like, how
the
do they
scroll
go
in
to
the
justify that with the Skrulls being
the scrolls
good
in the
guys?
MCU are more benign, but I still get the idea there are some infiltrators nonetheless, which will cause a conflict of interest. But that's only speculation. Again, we're just here to talk about this series anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're done?
Yeah, I mean, overall, Loki is, well, I guess it is a series you do need to watch. Like, I mean, again, that's a thing with the MCU. It does feel like, technically, these are things you need to watch to some extent, so go ahead and give it a look, but it's weird. In some cases, I find it to be the weakest show. In other cases, I don't consider it the strongest, but I still consider it better than WandaVision. If I were to rank the MCU shows so far we've gotten, Falcon and Winter Soldier easily goes at the top. I guess I would put Loki in the middle, because I'll admit, at the very least, the ending doesn't feel like it flips things into outright bad territory. It's just that, as Q has told me, Loki feels like a struggle of a series to get through, from pretty much start to finish. Not necessarily bad, but you really have to acquire that taste.
It all depends on how you enjoy and the things that are approached in this series anyway.
What did you think, Dedge?
Loki is a pretty interesting series. It's not my favorite of the bunch, but I am more invested in seeing where things go, because this one is clearly not done with not done. I thought it was trying to be a series that was going to resolve everything in this short amount of episodes and then move on to see where the characters go next. But no, this is a continuation. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
What about you, Teo?
Like I said, the premise alone and the implications are the thing that bother me a bit the most. But I'm not gonna lie, it's still interesting on its own as a whole, as both a Loki-centered series, for the characters does. The character of Loki generally does something that we haven't seen in the movies, a lot, particularly the shape-shifting and and more illusions. Again, they try to expand a bit more also his powers. And they try also to talk a bit more about what this character means, the rest that he has done, that the original Loki that we knew in the MCU did in the rest of the movies before his death in Infinity War. and such. So there is a lot of effort put into this, and with especially being a gun for a greater scope. But because of those couple of elements that constitute its premise, the fit of this this statue, it's cannot sustain itself that much for me. It's fine for the moment. It's a good story, but it's hindered by the retcon that it applies to the whole thing. It's either you like it or not. And for me, I can't still accept the idea that free will was actually suppressed until this point in the MCU. It just feels like a middle finger to all the people who dedicated time and effort writing and directing the previous movies. I don't know. We'll have to see how this also turns out in season 2 and for the future of the MCU. Like I said a couple of times, the only thing that we can do at this point is just to see where things go. Which is sadly, again, another double-edged sword. It's sadly what I did mention before. Again, ultimate key jingling fest. We're basically just handled a treat, and the only way we can be potentially satisfied is to see where things go in the future.
Here's the spectrum. On one hand, a path could be as great as Infinity War. On the other end of the spectrum, you get essentially what happened to Batroc and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Baron von Strucker in Avengers 2. So
we'll have to see.
We'll have to see,
especially because we're not knowing when season 2 is gonna roll out. The next thing that will happen, I think in August, is What If. So, and after that, supposedly it's the Hawkeye series. We'll see how that turns out as well. I'm not particularly interested in Wed One, to be honest, but I'll still probably give it an occasional look just to see how it turns out to be. And then the other ones that interest me the most will be stuff like, say, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, a bit Kamala Khan, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a bit curious about that. And other stuff that will be in the future. Like, as a whole, Phase 4, despite being this a bit rocky, I do believe has the potential for very interesting things. So, and hopefully that now Marvel is trying to release the movies now, other than just the series. We'll see how this turns out. Hopefully, with less weird retcons, but I'm not holding too much my breath. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.